Proof again, strength in numbers. When somebody's brave enough to come out and tell of their specific experience, that gives others the courage and the strength to come out and do the same. So just yesterday, as of this recording, I spoke about a conversation I had with a high-ranking, very top clearance government individual who talked about, who asked me if I've heard of any reports of folks hearing what sounds like turbine engines just starting up, and then 5 or 6 seconds later, there's no sound at all. He's asked if there's been reports of people's dogs in the area going crazy when they hear these similar sounds. And once again, you guys have flooded the channel with emails, and I'm going to read some here this morning. The first one actually was put on that video as a comment from Timmer23. He writes, "Hell yeah. Many times here in Connecticut, my neighbors up and down the street come out to the porch more than once expecting to see a rocket ship and saw absolutely nothing. We stood looking at each other very confused." So clearly the answer to the question that my friend didn't really know he was asking, it slipped. I don't think he realized he gave me that information, but yeah, the answer is yes. So here's another one. Kevin, and this came in via an email. "Kevin, me and my daughter hear these sounds often. We go outside and nothing is visible. My husband hears it occasionally also. At times it sounds like heavy aircraft circling for long periods. It has woken me up at night, and during the day you can hear it inside and out. This has been going on for 3 to 4 years, and it is extremely annoying. So I Googled people hearing airplane noises last year, and hundreds, if not thousands of people heard it. Sometimes only one family member hears it while others don't. I was excited to hear this on your channel today. You are right. Strength in numbers. Thanks for all you do." So there you have it, folks. And listen, if you have a similar experience, you can email it to me here at the channel. I'm more likely to see it if it's an email, even though we're still getting hundreds of those a day, versus a comment, because we get thousands of those a day. We get hundreds an hour every time I upload a video. The email address here is crazylake@mail.com. Okay? Now, here is a very good one, and I believe this gentleman, Carl Harper from Missouri, who has given me explicit permission to use his name and his story, and you need to do the same. We are under attack by trolls and bots and some government folks, agents, sending us fake stories, clearly. And so I'm doing my best to vet these. A couple have slipped through, and then they came back with a couple of hardy har-hars, gotcha. And again, listen, if you're sending fake stories to lie, to try to make me look like a liar, you're the one that's clearly the liar, and you will be outed when you get discovered. Now, with all that said, moving forward, Carl, who's given me permission to share this, writes, "Kevin, after watching your video on YouTube of January 14, 2025, which was yesterday same thing, I was reminded of a case I investigated back on October 20, 2023. My witness has an aviation background, which gave the report more credibility. He commented," and now this is from the aviation expert, "I was awakened at 4:25 a.m. to what sounded originally like a very low altitude jet in extremely close proximity. Upon going outside to investigate, it was evident the noise was unlike anything I had heard from known conventional aircraft. Nothing was visible in the sky despite an extremely clear sky and a quiet night. It sounded as if to be heading 36 at a low altitude, approximately 1,500 to 3,000 feet. So I don't know if that means a longitude or latitude, but that's what they said as far as that number 36 goes. And he says AGL, maybe that's an angle, 36-degree angle. The sound was definitely from some kind of propulsion as it faded into the distance, seeming to be heading 36. There it is again. It was a difficult noise to describe, as it almost sounded like a large air displacement was taking place, as if the induction could be heard over what seemed to sound like the exhaust tone. It was not piston engine. It was what sounded like an extremely advanced fan jet type engine. Please feel free to call for further explanation. Am not surprised at all that nothing was visible, given my assumption that this thing was military and designed to be unseen." So the assumption from the expert here is that it was like some sort of stealth technology. It did not appear on the Flight Radar 24 app either. Please update your website so if nothing was observed, you can report aerial activity. Had to mark a lot of boxes that do not apply to my experience so I could submit what I experienced. Again, I observed nothing. However, something was definitely in the near vicinity, flying approximately north under power. I would guess it between 40 and 150 knots. And then Carl continues. I think it might give more credence to your secret clearance friend. As you requested, you have my permission to use this comment for your broadcasts. Carl, thank you for sending us that. Boom, credibility right there. Here's another one. And this one comes from a police officer, former police officer. It says, Kevin, for years I have heard an aircraft fly over that starts out as a whistle before you can hear the engine's aircraft. I never have been able to see it. I have heard it at various times, day and night. As a police officer, I worked the midnight shift and observed many objects in the night sky that really didn't make sense, but figured they were mostly military craft that were possibly black projects. More goes on that they will not reveal until such tech is already obsolete. Absolutely. Usually the public isn't knowledgeable of current black op military technology until it's been obsolete for a full 20 years. Yeah, it's incredible. He continues, have been watching your videos for several years and have enjoyed them as well as a few of your books. Please continue your work to educate us. Bobby. Bobby, thank you so much for your story. Thanks for the compliments. I'm glad you enjoy my books. And thank you for the service that you either once did as a police officer, or if you're still currently doing it, thank you for holding that thin blue line. Bobby mentioned my books. Last night we had a members-only live stream. It was a wonderful experience. It lasted an hour and a half, but it felt like 20 minutes. Finally figured out how to make it members-only, so we kept the trolls out, the bots out, that up to, two times ago, it was 11,000 people in 1 hour flooding the comment section, so we couldn't have a good experience. We did last night. And so I came up with a new perk for members only because my books did come up. And I still have several print copies of several different titles here, and you can get them on our Etsy store. The link is in the description box below. A lot of the members were asking which should they start with. Basically, I'd recommend The Lunatic. That's probably the best book I ever wrote. Off Switch and FYI, that's actually me and my gunner's turret in Iraq back in 08 or 09. That deals with PTSD, both fictitious novels, but based upon real life fact. The Lunatic deals with this whole woke nonsense and the social nonsensities of the last 4 years especially, really puts it into perspective in a really creepy, suspenseful story way. But here's the perk. If you're a member, when you purchase those books, make sure to put in the notations that you are a member, because you're going to receive a free copy of my novel, The Box. Look at that. That's the image. I'm in the middle. There's my beautiful bride, Dearly, a.k.a. Giggly Girl, and our little boy, Daniel. He was in kindergarten when I wrote this book. The only romance novel I ever wrote, but one of the best books I've ever written. So that's another perk for being a member. Bobby, thank you again for reminding me about the books with your story here. Now, on to the next one. This one says, Kevin, please keep me anonymous. Then I will. And again, if you want to send me your story, but you don't want your name known, let me know to keep you anonymous, and I absolutely will. First off, thank you for all that you do and all that you continue to do. I came across your channel only a few days ago and deeply appreciate that you share many experiences when others stay silent. I have as of yet to experience the fog, but have had symptoms similar to those who have been exposed to it. The flu, this is not. Brings up a lot of good points. Pay attention to this one. For some context, I do live in a higher elevation and farther inland within a smaller population. Being that it is wintertime, I tend to stock up on cocoa, as that is the main way that I drink water in the colder months. Typically, I use bottled water for drinking year-round, but with the cost of most necessities increasing, I opted not to purchase water this last grocery run. I used tap water for a few weeks and noticed similar symptoms to those that were exposed to the fog, both humans and animals alike. Sorry for the loss of your feathered family members. Thank you, I appreciate that. You know, we lost 7 of our 8 quails to this fog, and where there were some nefarious individuals out there took that as an opportunity to pounce and be nefarious. Sickening how people would do such a thing. I do appreciate those of you who 100% sincerely send your condolences. Those birds were very close to me and my family. Since having a little extra funds from the last holiday, I bought and started using bottled water again and noticed that my symptoms improved for the better. A spark of prophecy, if that is what it can be classified as, entered my mind after watching one of the last videos of yours. What happens when the snow starts to melt or whatever chemicals are in the atmosphere wind up in the drinking water as well as the water that is used to grow and produce crops? Is this what the good book has said would happen when referring to pestilence and famine? Apologies in advance for the tin hat connection mindset, but wondered if anyone else has come to this notion. Hey, there's nothing tin hat about that. You got it. I mean, yeah, when this snow melts, which can't happen quick enough for me, I'm tired of it. It's going into the water table. We're going to end up drinking this. What's in it? He continues, a big congratulations to your wife on gaining her citizenship and my best wishes and regards for all. Thank you so much. Here's another one. I mean, guys and girls, strength in numbers. Strength in numbers. We're not crazy. We've just been timid. We've been hesitant to come out and share these stories. But now that everybody is, I mean, we just published, talking about the books, True Hauntings Volume 7. I mean, 2 volumes in 1 month because of the thousands of these stories that are pouring in. We don't have time to tell them on the channel. You can get them on Amazon. Those links are in the description box. Okay? Kevin, you have my permission to share this email on your YouTube channel, and please do not put it in your next... Oh, and please do put it in your next volume of True Hauntings if you find it appropriate. Absolutely. I already put this one in what's going to be Volume 8, which will probably be out in 2 more weeks. Just please keep me anonymous. You've mentioned how completely insane some of the people who follow this phenomena are if you get off script. All I will tell you is that I know firsthand how right you are, and I don't want people with whom I actually share these same beliefs based upon actual experiences, one of which I'm about to share, coming after me because my experience veers off the conspiracy script to a degree. Yes, Kevin, there are tons of mentally and emotionally unstable crazies out there who do pose a great threat to the general public, and I don't want them tracking me down as some of them clearly have you. So again, please keep me anonymous. I am a 65-year-old mother of 2 and grandmother of 4. Everyone who knows me well would attest to my credibility. I have no special titles as I never had a career. I stayed home and raised my kids while their father, my husband of 40 years now, worked his tail end off, sometimes when our children were young, working 2 jobs at once to provide for our family. You actually remind me of him. I started following you when you just started your channel years ago, and I stuck with you because of the fact you reminded me of my husband. Like him, you come across as a real man. Real men do not sit around griping and complaining about their problems while doing nothing about them and blaming other people for their problems, like far too many males in our society today. Like you, I will not bestow the title of men on those miscreants because males, though they are men, they are not. Agreed. Takes more than the proper plumbing. Anyway, I'm so glad I stuck around for the long haul because when my kids were very young, this would have been in the mid-1980s or so, we had one such unexplainable experience as you've been describing these last few weeks when we were on a weekend camping trip. We had gone to a place that's not far from where you live, I think, Lake Mumah. It's in both Virginia and West Virginia. I do know of Lake Mumah. I was there a long time ago, and I've been meaning to take my wife dearly and our son Daniel there. It's only about 2.5 hours away, right on the border of Virginia and West Virginia. We had taken our small John boat out to one of several islands on the lake. It was the middle of the week in the middle of a particularly hot summer, so we weren't surprised that we were the only ones there. We pitched our tent and set up camp, prepared and ate a late lunch/early dinner, and then fished until dark. Well, we fished as much as you can fish with a 4- and 5-year-old. I don't know if you've ever heard the old saying, you can take a kid fishing, but you can't go fishing with a kid. I have heard that saying, and I'm very familiar with it. I take Daniel, my son, and dearly, and it's kind of like taking 2 kids because I have to bait the hooks, change the hooks. They're always getting hung up. Got to take the fish off the hooks. And when the fish are biting, it's that much more frustrating because I'm constantly replacing bait. I feel like a guide on a boat doing this. Now, they catch plenty of fish and it makes me happy, but geez, I'd like to catch some too. So yeah, I get it. Anyway, we turned in early just after dark. That's one thing I've always loved about camping. When you're out in nature, you pass out like a light shortly after the sun goes down because there's no gadgets to keep you awake. It's one of my favorite parts too. Around midnight, our entire family was awakened by what sounded like something you just talked about in one of your videos. The sound of a jet engine starting up and then lifting off, and then about 5 seconds later, back to complete silence. Kevin, I know my family and I were not just hearing things. Though we were the only ones on this particular island, there was clearly other people camping on the mainland about half a mile away across the water. Because after what sounded like a jet engine ceased to be heard, we could hear dogs from the mainland going crazy, just as you mentioned your friend with the high government clearance told you earlier this week. Now, here's the craziest part. The sound came from the island we were on, and the next morning, as soon as the sun came up, my family and I began walking around the island, and practically in the middle of it, which would have been about 100 yards away from where our tent was, we found an area that looked as if something had come straight down out of the sky at some point, as if to land, and then sat there for some time, and then simply took back off. All of the tree limbs that surrounded the circular area, which appeared to have been where a craft had landed and sat stationary for a while, were broken off. And they were broken. They had not been sawed off. Kevin, my family and I never told a soul about that because we figured they'd just write us off as crazy. We honestly believe, as we have since this incident occurred, that when we first reached that island, that craft was already there. We just didn't or couldn't see it. And while we slept, it lifted off and disappeared. Again, Kevin, I'm so glad I've stuck with your channel for the long haul. I have wanted to get this off my chest for the last 40 years, and now I finally have. Keep fighting the good fight. You are giving people like me a place to safely come and share our experiences. Do not stop doing what you're doing because of the Do not stop doing what you're doing because of the unstable, mentally ill lunatics that are harassing you and your family. Trust me, there are so many of those kinds of people out there, they'd harass you for some other reason anyway. So please continue to be the voice for those of us who would otherwise have no voice at all. Your longtime follower and channel member, Anonymous. Thank you, and yeah, you're right. I mean, again, going back to this novel, there's lunatics everywhere. Sometimes you live right next door to them. That's the scariest part about it. Look, this is what I looked like before I started letting my hair grow out. Yeah, all right. Now, this last one comes from Darla. Darla is also a channel member. We had the pleasure of having Darla in the members-only group chat last night. Darla has sent a ton of stories. They appear in both True Hauntings Volume 7 and 8, I believe. And I've been wanting to come on here and read one of her stories for a while, but they're usually 3,000 words long. She condensed one for me because she wanted to get this information out there, and this is very excellent information I'm getting ready to share with you. And Darla is very deserving of this, having one of her stories told. So Darla, thanks for shortening this up for me. Darla writes, "Hi, Kevin. I'll keep this one as short as possible. I have genuinely thanked you many times for being brave enough to be the one to share these experiences. I know if I was in your shoes, I would question the validity and sanity of the emails received, particularly mine. I'm not questioning your sanity, though I do question the sanity of some folks who, whatever. Nothing I've read, but I've been hoodwinked a couple times, but 90+% of these I honestly believe are genuine. All I can do is give you my word. Every letter I have shared with you is the solid truth to the best of my memory. Only because I trust you will not share others' names. I'm fairly new to your site. I learned this about you, and so I began leaving more details. I don't mind if the government is paying attention. In fact, I hope they are. And I can assure you they are. Bottom line, I have been visited, as have others that I know. Okay, then Darla goes on to give me some more personal information that she didn't want shared, so I'm not going to share that. But then she jumps right back into what is shareable. That being, and she brings up, looks like 8 very valid facts and points. Number 1, speaking only for myself, however, I have been visited and or abducted since the late 60s or early 70s, typically in remote areas. Number 2, I believe I have been chipped in the past and have the scoop on my leg, which was recently bruised, as tiny as the spot is. This is about the 6th time I've heard of this scoop. A lot of folks who have abduction stories claim that they have just a tiny little place somewhere on their body where it looks like their skin was just maybe scooped out with like a very sharp instrument. In my mind, because I do wood carving with knives, and I think of the sharp instrument you use to scoop bowls out with, but something even smaller than that. 3, I have lived in and visited in many different states, and I know I have had experiences in the following different states: California, the Carolinas, Alabama, West Virginia when just passing through, and Maine. 4, I and others are and were being used for breeding. I know this is difficult to hear, but true. Think about it. Why wouldn't they? 5, this is a plan, and they are already among us, and soon it will be even more so. 6, my husband and I have always lived in remote areas, including now. I believe somehow the family members they abduct are somehow given that desire to live this way. Don't most people prefer to live next to each other in cities? I don't, so it makes me wonder if maybe I've been abducted. I don't know, but ironically, how interesting that the New World Order types want to have these 15-minute cities. They want to get rid of those of us who are out here because we're self-sustainable. We're not dependent upon them. I have a drinkable water source. I have more food than I could eat out here in the form of wildlife and game and the food that we grow and raise. I've planted fruit orchards. Last summer, we got literally truckloads of fruit. We couldn't eat it all. Why do they want me to move into a city and be dependent upon modern conveniences? 7, they tag generations of families. We're either like cattle or royalty. It's important to keep a sense of humor. And Darla, thank you for having a sense of humor. I know I come out here and joke a little bit sometimes with some of these videos. Some of these lunatics, I guess they view that as me veering off the conspiracy trend, and then I get the threats and they tell me they hate me and write me 3,000 word long essays as to why they're unsubscribing. Listen, I don't care, and I don't read those. And along with that, also, I'm mentioning starting the members to kind of get myself away from those folks. They'll write 3,000 word essays about how they can't afford $6 a month for a membership. Maybe if you worked instead of spent an hour writing a 3,000 word long essay, you could afford a $6 membership. Just throwing that out there for you. It's all about how we spend our time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Some of us choose to use it productively and efficiently. Others choose to waste it. Number 8, just my humble opinion. I do not believe the fog is from other worlds or aliens. Worse, I think it's from human beings. It's what some do to destroy other human beings, to destroy our beautiful planet. I imagine you get tired of hearing it, but saying thank you, Kevin, is the very least we can do. Warm regards, Darla. No, Darla, I don't get tired of hearing it. I love hearing it. So, folks, there's a bunch more stories, a bunch more genuine, 100% real experiences people have been having with these things. Thank you all for having the courage to send me those stories. If you've got a similar story, you can send it to the email address. It's crazylake@mail.com. Some of those folks that in their 3,000 word, and again, I do not read those, but one of the common themes that I just glanced at and noticed was, I wonder how far he walks out into the woods before turning around for his closing and opening scenes. About 12 or 15 yards. Watch. See y'all for more next time. See?